But from my perspective, whose land is being invaded, it's not great. I don't think the Khoi and San people saw that as the Cape of Good Hope. I don't think so. Those who were at the front line, I mean, that's why we talk about the front line war, the Khoi and the San, that were fought over centuries with them resisting this encroachment onto their land. So, Cape of Good Hope, man. Excuse me. Cape of Good Hope. Hey. So now the Dutch East India Company, from the Netherlands, right, integrates with this community of Huguenots. So these are the people who later then become the Boer, or the Boers, as some people say. Or they call themselves Afrikaners today, which is debated that why are you using the word African in defining yourself? Problematic, and maybe a conversation for another day. But this is how it was formed, right? Now, there are incidents in history, and that's why you can't think about South Africa outside of the global community, because look at what they say: the European coalitions and Napoleonic wars effect on the Cape Colony, that the things that were happening internationally were affecting this Cape Colony. During the French Revolutionary Wars, the Dutch Republic was occupied by the French in 1795. The Cape Colony then became a French vassal and enemy of the British, who were at war with France. British troops invaded and occupied the Cape Colony that same year. The British relinquished control of the territory in 1803 under the Peace of Amiens, but occupied the colony on 19 January 1806, following the Battle of Blauberg. The Dutch formally ceded the territory to the British in the Anglo-Dutch Treaty of 1814. It would remain a separate British colony until its incorporation into the Union of South Africa. 1910. Because we need, you see, this is what the patriotic South Africans don't understand. The British and the Dutch were struggling for control of this territory we now call South Africa. But it started there in that Cape Colony. And the struggle was for who will get to dominate. This is important because when I start to talk about Afrikaner nationalism, you will understand where all these things come from and how they struggled for years with each other for control of this territory to determine who will have the right to rule. When they talk about the Anglo-Boer Wars, that's what it was about. It was about the land, the territory. When I read about the Huguenots, there's a point I want to point out. They say a community of French Protestants or Huguenots arrived in the Cape of Good Hope. They had fled from France due to religious persecution. See, guys, this is the problem. In Europe, there have been so much struggles over ethnicity, over religion, over what. You hear these stories all the time. Hey, the gypsies are persecuted. Hey, these ones are persecuted. Hey, the Jews are persecuted. And these people have to go somewhere. But now the problem is when they go anywhere else in the world, they become a problem for the rest of us. And hence this is where this comes in now. They arrive in South Africa because they are fleeing in Europe. They are fleeing from themselves. Same with the Jews. Because it was so difficult for Jews to find a safe place anywhere in Europe, it was decided we need to carve up a land for them somewhere because they were not wanted in Europe. By the way, there was a time when they were not considered white. Even the Irish at some point were not considered white. And I think even the Italians, especially in America, were not considered white. So, this white and black thing, it's so arbitrary when you look at it historically. It changes according to political exigencies or what is politically convenient at the time. It's like, okay, Okay, it is politically useful now for the Irish and the Italians to become white, and they became white. I know. For those of you of my people, man, who have such a desire to be white, you need to take this up. You need to you need to take it up and say, hey, to you, the definers of whiteness, why can't I also come in? I mean, look at all these. Anyway, let me not get derailed. But you know what I mean? It's so arbitrary. It's not based on anything substantial. It's just whatever the interests that are driving it at the time. That's why I don't take European definitions that seriously, because they're always shifting and changing. And if there's one thing my part of my sort of pride as a man is that I don't let anyone get me running around, going here and there and playing games and manipulating me and playing mind games. I won't allow that thing. And that's why I absolutely reject European style religion, especially the one that was proliferated here in South Africa. You know which one, I don't need to say. And it's not a hatred of faith or anything, it's just the the vestiges of colonialism that come with it, I find problematic. But I have no problem with anyone having a faith that they choose. That's up to you. But when I'm dealing with history and I'm looking at the impact of things, I can't skip that one. And we're going to talk about that. We got to. So you see that there's always been this problem with Europeans and them persecuting each other. Part of the reason the UN was formed was that we must not fight anymore. We must find a platform. You see, um, I mean, geopolitical analysts like John Mearsheimer from the US talk about a theory of, they have such a fear-based view of the world. They feel that they need to dominate the world to make sure that they are secure, because unless they do that, they feel as though, if they get into trouble, there is no other force, above the state that can come to your rescue, you know. So as a state, how they conceptualize the world is they have to be strong, dominate, imperialist, that's how they justify their imperialism, that they must be the strongest in the world, the United States of America. And so but this is the kind of thinking you find among the European elite, and the American elite, that their concept is that they must dominate all of us in order for them to be safe. But it's not true. It doesn't work. It has proven itself that it doesn't work, because you think we like being oppressed and we're just going to sit and allow ourselves to be oppressed? No. No human beings. All human beings at some point want their freedom and to live in their land free, their own land free. So there's none of this stuff, it's not going to work. You can't keep people dominated in all perpetuity. So let's look at this. So we have looked at how the colony was formed, but then you had the British, and then you had some descendants of the Dutch East India Company there as well. And make no mistake, everyone is here, to get them those resources. The Dutch East India Company was there to make money. The mandate was clear. The idea, the colonial project was about extracting resources from the colonies for the benefit of the capital back home, whether it's Britain or France or wherever. So this union of South Africa is how the sort of friction between the Boer and the British was resolved, and they agreed that they will govern this territory together. They will not fight each other. They will just exclude us. They just make sure they exclude us, but they'll be good with each other. So that's the union of South Africa, my South African patriots. That's where it starts, and that's why, for me, this proudly South African, find it very problematic. Union of South Africa, thing that was formed in my absence. No one consulted any of you on this Union of South Africa. Did they come and ask you what you think about the formulation of the Union of South Africa? Or did they consult you when they carved up the province and said, okay, this is the Northern Province, this is the Transvaal, this is what? Were you in conversation? African people? Were you there? So no, I that's again another issue with the power to define. The fact that South Africa, the name was never changed. Already it showed that there was no real intention to significantly change the structure of the society itself in how it functioned in terms of the economy and everything. There was no ever such an intention, and it's clear. And that's why I question the sovereignty of the black government in this country. How much independence do they really have to make policy decisions? It seems like they're always handcuffed and held ransom by the will of the markets. So yeah, the Union of South Africa, you can't sell me on proudly South African, South Africa first, until we have dealt with this problem here of this Union of South Africa that has nothing to do with us, and was never formed to benefit us. It was for these groups, these two groups. You see them, they are coming together there in the flags. Here they are. Where are we here? So no, not proudly South African in that sense. I'm proudly African. I'm proud of the people I come from. I'm proud of the people who have resisted invasion and dispossession for centuries. I'm proud of that, not proud of this Union of South Africa here. That's why I am of the view it needs to be redefined, this thing. Otherwise, we are going to continue to think in the terms of these colonial settlers, who had other ideas about why they are carving up the terrain the way that they are doing. And now they're coming back with this Phil Craig guy, straight from the British Empire. You come here, you want to talk about, you think you need to carve up our land. Those days are gone, buddy. No, absolutely not. No, not even going to entertain it. It's just a no for me. Absolutely not going to support that. And I am going to urge and rally anyone who cares to listen or who can hear the sound of my voice, don't support such a move. Absolutely not. And if you look at the Western Cape and you think about how it's positioned strategically on the coast, remember that's how they arrived with ships on the coast. If you look at the coastline of the Western Cape, it's almost completely in the sea. So much access to the sea. I mean, in terms of the global chess game, that is not a position that can be allowed to be left to the hands of these separatists. No, absolutely not. And I look at their allegiances, they are not even ashamed to demonstrate how they are so aligned with the Western world and Western interests. So I have to assume that they are on board with the imperialist agenda. Now, the one thing that I mentioned at the beginning, which I think is important, is they want an Israel-like state based on Western values. You need to think about the implications of that. Look at what Israel has done to the Palestinians and the whole world. The whole world has lamented, but because those with power refuse to stop it because it is in their interest that this continue, it continues. And what I want us to think about as African people is If you think what is happening to the Palestinians right now will never happen to you, then you haven't been paying attention. Why wouldn't it happen to you? It's happened before, right? I mean, apartheid, just 30 years ago, 30 years ago, not too long ago, 30 years ago. You think we were in apartheid less than 100 years ago, guys? Way less than 100 years ago. We were in the thick of apartheid, at the height of apartheid. And you guys are telling yourself, it could never happen again. Why? Because the racists have changed their minds? They have not. Clearly, we have seen them all over this country. We've seen them showing that they still hold to this view, you know, of their separateness and holding on to privilege and power and not sharing. It's clear. So, I mean, do you think, and think about this, né? Those Palestinians, those are Arabs. Those are Arabs. Now, Arabs on the hierarchy of white supremacy, Arabs are not at the bottom, right? They are still above you in the white supremacist sort of framing. They are considered to be above you. The Indians are still above you. The Asians, Chinese, everyone is still above you. You are at the bottom in terms of their definitions. If they can do that to Arab, what makes you think that they can't do this to you, Africans? I mean, with the kind of value assigned to Black life, the other day, some farmers decided that they are going to unalive 2 African women and feed them to the pigs. That is the value assigned to you in terms of your life and how much it matters. So for me, any Africans who support this thing really just don't get it. And they think they're gonna live in this Western style, Western Cape, and what? Life is gonna be good for them. I mean, you will essentially just have to be living like slaves, man. You will have to be living like some underclass because best believe that these guys, Phil Craig and them, they ain't thinking about equality and all of that stuff. They actually hate that stuff. All that talk about equality, the need to have equality, justice, and all, they don't like none of that talk. They like the idea of maintaining white privilege, power, and all of that. And then maybe they can give you a job somewhere or something, but that's all your life is going to amount to. As far as they think it is right for you to go as an African person, that is how far you will go. If you are fine with that kind of life, I am not there. Me, I'm about self-determination. That is what I dream about. I don't dream about an existence of eternal dependence on other people. Existing like a permanent child, Africans, permanent children of these people. That's not me. If you're about that, good luck, but that's not me. I dream of self-determination, consuming what we produce ourselves, governing ourselves the way we see fit, defining things the way we see fit. That's what I think about. I'm not doing that existing as a second-class citizen, being happy with mediocrity and being given the bare minimum every time. I value myself too much for that. I think I deserve all the good things in life that everyone else thinks they deserve. And that's just my position. So I don't think Africans should be satisfied with getting less. So this Cape independence thing, very, very problematic. Very problematic, Africans. So the Portuguese government, so now we are continuing. Roots